Welcome. We are now, I believe we should be live streaming at this point.
Yeah, a lot of people ask that, how it belongs to the state. We're not able to give the actual flags out. If there's anything that you guys are interested in, want to know more about, I can always send like information to you. But the actual presentation in itself is to be presented by someone trained through the Texas Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. And that's what their take is on. With the state, like, you can't do that. I figure I guess they think that they put a lot of work and everything into it, so they're like, okay. Because you got people that will educate people and not miseducate them.
So we are officially live.
We are officially live, so feel free to start whenever.
Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Sandra and I am a regional overdose prevention specialist for Davidson County Region 4. We have roles such what we call the regional overdose prevention specialists, short, we call them ropes, all across Tennessee. And this is the opioid information. This is not the right one. That's what's going on. This is not the right presentation. Because it has to be opioid information and stimulants. That's the old. Okay.
So I ain't
gonna get it right. So I got kind of get a challenge. It's the SOAR 2.
Okay.
So just know we're under the SOAR 2 presentation. This was the SOAR 1, which is the state overdose response grant. And recently, why I had to change, because we have a lot of this information on the new presentation, but we recently had to add stimulus. And why we had to add stimulus to the presentation, because 1 out of 3 overdose deaths in 2020 involved multiple substances. And so that is very pertinent to where we are right now with opioid crisis, because that's the education we're trying to get out to the public. It's not just a certain demographic who's overdosing. It's not just individuals who's doing a heroin overdosing, which is an opioid we know people misuse or abuse and they overdose from. But they're overdosing on medications like Adderall, Ritalin, Xanax. It's the SOAR 2. So
This one.
that right there.
Perfect.
That's it right there. So we have individuals that's overdosing on all different types of substances. We're actually having, there it goes. We have first-time users that are overdosing. We have experimenters that overdose. So we try to reduce that stigma around it just having it to a certain population. These days, you can be anywhere and come across someone who's experiencing an overdose. You can be in Bellevue, Brentwood, as well as Nashville up the street around the corner. North Nashville, Buchanan Street. So that's what we're trying to get the education out to the public that Naloxone is one of those things, which is the overdose reversal medication, that you rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And so being educated on the trends and the signs and the symptoms of an overdose, because a stimulant overdose looks different from an opioid overdose. But if you find someone that's unresponsive, we just say it's safe to live in Naloxone, because again, it can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be someone who looks like they're overdosed. It can be someone who simply is asked, do you have something for pain? Got it from someone. That person did not get it from a licensed pharmacist, and they got it from someone, purchased it from a friend, or got it from a friend. And that was a part of what we call a bad batch, where someone may have pressed some substances or made some pills, and some of those pills have lethal doses of fentanyl. So does that make sense? Okay, so again, this is the opioid stimulants and overdose prevention training. So we're gonna go next. So this is a training agenda. We'll talk about key terms, review overdose trends in Tennessee and our county, discuss the science of addiction, understand the stigma around the opioid crisis we're experiencing, understanding harm reduction, and that's what this is, meeting the person where they are. Realizing everybody's not ready or able to stop using substances. Learn how to respond to a drug overdose from naloxone, understand compassion, fatigue, and burnout, and how to take action to prevent overdoses in our community. You can go to next. So first we'll talk about opioids. You hear me mention opioids. And so opioids are basically medications and drugs that bind opioid receptors in our brain. And this is a prescription medication like hydrocodone and oxycodone, as well as illicit substances like heroin and fentanyl. So fentanyl, that right there is what you'll hear me mention often, because that's kind of like the culprit of all the overdose deaths, or majority of the overdose deaths. 2 out of 3 overdose deaths in 2020 involved fentanyl. And so that's very scary because that's well over half of overdoses involved fentanyl. So there is a pharmaceutical purpose for fentanyl. Does anybody know the pharmaceutical purpose of fentanyl? I'm gonna speak to you about the medical on the hair, in the hair. Yeah. You know the pharmaceutical purpose of fentanyl? Okay, all right, so let me explain to you. So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. That means it's man-made, it's made by chemicals, and it's made like in a laboratory or something. Other opioids are made like plant-based, but this is actually made out of chemicals and it's man-made, like I explained. The fentanyl we're talking about in this presentation is the illicit or street fentanyl. But the pharmaceutical fentanyl has a wonderful purpose to it. It was engineered and created to work with individuals with not just regular pain, but excruciating pain. Individuals that may be in the latter stages of like cancer, certain medical procedures that we know are very invasive, so we will have the person have a lot of excruciating pain, not just regular, but I say stump with toe pain. This is like real excruciating pain. You also find properties of it in some epidurals as well. So that is the problem. Yes, so you get in there, right? It's not just no regular pain, it's excruciating pain. So that's the pharmaceutical purpose of fentanyl. But again, the fentanyl that we are talking about today that's causing all the crisis or all the overdose deaths is illicit or street fentanyl. Yes, sir.
I also want to add that in class they mentioned they use it as an elephant tranquilizer.
Okay, that's carfentanil.
Or carbon.
Carfentanil is the granddaddy of them all, right? Fentanyl is another strand of fentanyl, right? So you know you have different strands of it. As of about 2 months ago, they had discovered, TBI had discovered over 25 strands of fentanyl, of the illicit fentanyl. And just know, because you're dealing with chemicals and stuff, it just have to be one molecule off to create another strand. And also, to furthermore explain where we are today, we have had, and I'm trying to find the example. We have had Narcan. You guys heard of Narcan?
Nope.
Okay, so Narcan is the opioid overdose reversal medication. It's a brand of it. The medication is Naloxone. Narcan is a brand of it.
So it's like
It's 4 milligrams.
So it's like an antibiotic?
Somewhat, but it's, but yeah, it's somewhat, but it's for opioids. It's only an opioid antagonist. It only reverses an opioid. That's the only opioid overdose. That's the only thing it does. Because people have been concerned about administering the medication, because they say you administer medication, well, you know, what legal liabilities we may have. Or what if they're having a heart attack, a stroke, or something else going on. The thing about this, it only works on opioid overdose. So if that's not what's going on, it won't hurt them, but it won't help them. It only reverses an opioid overdose when it can be reversed. Again, the medication is Naloxone. Narcan is a form of it, which is 4 milligrams. Then we have recently came out with Cloxado, which you'll see later in this presentation, which has 8 milligrams. It's actually a double strength, but still a one-time use. And I say that because remember I talked about the different strains that they are coming up with or that's being developed. Those strands are becoming stronger and stronger. So the word in the street was that people were building immunity for the Narcan. And that's what brain had been out for a long time that people have been using because it was taking more and more doses to reverse an overdose. But that's not what was going on. It's not the individual with the different strands of fentanyl that's out there that's being stronger. So it binds that receptor stronger. So it's taking more medication to reverse the overdose. That's why we came out with Cloxado, which is an 8 milligram, which is a double strength and still a one-time use. Because you cannot overdose on the medication that you administer, and it's not addictive. So it usually takes, again, less of those to reverse overdose in the heart. But I might be explaining that. So I'm thinking about my little clicker. I don't have my clicker anymore. So go back. So stimulants, we've had to add stimulants recently again, because stimulants are medication and drugs that cause increased activity in our body, like alertness and energy. And that's prescription medication like Adderall and Ritalin, which a lot of people are familiar with that, because that has been prescribed to a lot of people to treat ADHD. And so individuals sometimes use that or abuse that, or sometimes after they grow out of it, they still continue to use it as an adult, but it's not being prescribed. So it's also a hot market for that in the streets. Also, I don't know if you've seen in the news that there's a shortage of Adderall. Have y'all seen that in the news? Just being regularly prescribed for ADHD, adult ADHD. It's a shortage for that. And so we are bracing ourselves to see how that looks in the street. Because you know about supply and demand, right? The individuals can't find it, can't get it, they feel like they need it, what do? They look for another source to get it. And so that's kind of like why we're where we are today. And I'll explain that a little bit more. So again, the illicit or the street stimulants that we, some people may be familiar with are methamphetamine and cocaine. Again, all of these have been found laced with fentanyl, or there have been reports, toxicology reports. The individuals thought they were taking one thing, but they actually got something like fentanyl because they're pressing these pills in a fentanyl form. But people are thinking they get Adderall or Ritalin. And overdose is based on a toxic amount of a drug, a combination of drug over the body. Next. The minors. What's going on in the minors other than the pop lock and rock? What's going on in the minors?
Drugs, right?
A drug epidemic, right? So I would say this, and I always say overdose has always been an issue, right? It's always been an issue, but when the face of the opioid overdose has changed, now that's when it's like a real crisis. They're making this medication available because it's not again happening just in certain neighborhoods. It's happening everywhere, right? So now we have a crisis, but I would say we've always been in a crisis of opioid overdose. It's just now because it has the demographics has changed. You know, the pool has broadened as far as overdosing. Okay, you said I didn't know. So 90s, what was going on in the 90s? I didn't look about this earlier about. So what medication was being prescribed and it was being promoted? Not honestly, what medication that a lot of people were being prescribed? Oxycontin. Oxycontin, y'all remember that? Oxycontin. It was this big thing about Oxycontin. You get an Oxycontin, you get an Oxycontin. At one time, there was more prescriptions being written than every man, woman, and child in Tennessee. That's how bad it was, right? So Oxycontin was big, and so when you hear overdoses, it was usually due to prescription, legally prescribed opioids, right? And so when the government got a wind of the actual addictive properties of this medication, because it was being promoted by the pharmaceutical companies as this wonderful time release of pain medication, which was great, but they had downplayed the addictive property of it. So when the government got a hold of, it's very well so addictive, right? And so they started putting restrictions in it. Because at that time, the pharmaceutical companies had reps that was out there. They was really promoting, pushing doctors to prescribe it. Again, it was a wonderful medication. Doctors were prescribing to a lot of individuals. And the thing about an opioid, it has a physical component to it, right? Meaning that some drugs, when you stop using, you may think you're going to be sick or die, but you ain't gonna die. You just gonna be mentally sick about it, right? But these opioids have a physical component to it, meaning a lot of regular everyday people that were being prescribed this Oxycontin, and when the government came in and put these restrictions in, doctors started pulling back on writing the prescription. Same thing, we have Jane Doe and Junebug. Y'all get the two demographics I'm trying to track. Y'all know Junebug? Yeah, okay. And Jane Doe, right? So you got Junebug, who you expect to be in chronic substance use disorder, right? But then you got Jane Doe, who's fully functional in a different socioeconomic background than a pool than Junebug, stay-at-home mom, PTA mom, have it all going on. She's been taking this Oxycontin for makeup procedure she had several months ago. But one day she goes into the doctor, right? And because the government started putting restrictions in and knowing how addictive it was, because one of the restrictions they put in is that now when you go to the pharmacy, you have a narcotic, a prescription, you have to have your identification. That wasn't so up until a couple of years ago. And so they did that to try to discourage individuals from having more than one prescription. That's why we had more prescriptions being written, more prescriptions or more pills out there than every man, woman, and child in Tennessee. Because it wasn't nothing for one person to doctor shop and have a prescription this place, this place, this place. And they'll go to Walgreens here, CVS here, Rite Aid here. You get me? But when they put that system in, the government put that system in where you have to have that identification, that brought all those systems together. So that means that Jane Doe come in to Walgreens on Foxwood Highway and she tries to go to CVS out there in Bellevue, they're going to be connected to the same system. So they're going to say, no, you have a prescription here. So they did something about prescriptions getting written. Also, they start watching doctors' DEA numbers, right? So then they discourage doctors from writing so many prescriptions, right? So you think about Jane Doe, back to her. She goes into her doctor, she's been prescribed this time for what? 8 or 9 months, maybe a year.
I got a funny story. So I tore my Achilles in May of last year, and I'm in the ER, and I had this visibly torn. Like it's not as much torn. I'm asking them for some painkillers, and they were reluctant to give it to me. And I'm like, look, I know what this looks like, but like, please, like, I can't take it. I gotta get it.
You need something. Yeah, and so a lot of times I would say this, that, they do traditions. Remember to have the faces of things, they think some people are more liable, which sometimes your history, if you had a previous substance use disorder, they are a little hesitant about prescribing medications. I think that they sometimes pick and choose who they're hesitant to prescribe certain opioid type medications to because of demographics. I'm just gonna say that right now. I'm gonna lie to you. But just because of certain demographics. But back to Jane Doe, who goes in and the doctor saying, hey, she knows that she's been taking this medication for an extended amount of time. But now when the doctor is watching things, the doctor is like, hey, I can't prescribe that for you. So Jane Doe, remember, it's not a problem until it's a problem. Just look them already know what happened you got it. But Jane Doe don't. So then she goes home. Is she gonna be okay?
Withdraw.
She's gonna go through withdrawals, just like anybody else. Think about addiction. Substance use disorder, it's my body, right? So Jane Doe is gonna go through the same withdrawals that Junebug goes through, right? So think about that physical component of a substance use disorder, especially opioids, when you stop taking them, is that again, you're groggy, you can't function, you have a mind fog, so you can't operate the way you usually operate, right? So you can't get up out of bed because of that physical withdrawal component to it. So then what happens is that you're gonna be able to say, okay, if I'm being able to just trip on and do it, and be like, I'm going to go through this for a couple of days. Remember, a lot of people didn't educate about the addictive property and withdrawal process. So a lot of people didn't know what was going on, right? But then they knew that they had their own what they went through. So if they the doctor, what does that do? It might pulls a demand for the streets, right? So that's what's started happening. The demand for the street, we have now a whole new road. No, we already got the regular people to use it, right? But now we got a whole new demographic of individuals who actually afford $80 a week, right? Because some pills are $80 for every $1 pill. Yeah. So now you know why we created a lot of non-traditional drug dealers in the pandemic. Because people took up selling substances and selling drugs because they're trying to help them compensate their income. But that wasn't their primary, but they did one thing about it. Substances or drugs is something that's not wrong. That's real time. That's something that people find money for when they, when they take money for food, money for mortgage, money for that, then they mortgage money for something. So when the demand went out in the street, and remember, now the facts has changed. Now we have the big demand for opioids. That's when you get into 2010, you start seeing an uptick in heroin-related overdose deaths, because it wasn't just regular people that didn't overdose. Now it's people who don't really know about heroin, was trying to take that withdrawal process, and they may take some heroin. It was funny that Johnny could go from oxycodone to heroin. But if you know anything about substance use disorder, again, it's not body, they don't care. Because you're real focused, you will everything that you got, you can afford it, that you ain't like everybody else. But it's not if you like it, right? So then you got these individuals who are going out doing heroin, and that's when you start to see an uptick in heroin. But from 2010 to 2013, you see how quickly it escalated. That's when you start seeing synthetic opioid type overdoses. Because again, with heroin went working for a lot of people, by that time, drug cartels had got wind of the demand and they start shipping fentanyl in at alarming rates. What is the thing about fentanyl? Basically, more bang for your buck. Fentanyl number is synthetic. Anybody know about synthetic? Synthetic is cheaper than usually the real thing, right? So you can buy a whole bunch of synthetic fentanyl type products, right? Where you can maybe spend $100 on those products and $100 on heroin. If you spend $100 on heroin, you can maybe make $1,000. But if you spend $100 on fentanyl, you can maybe make $10,000. You do the math, right? It's called dope man economics. People are like, why are people doing it? Why are people saying it? It makes sense. You get a little bit of that and mix it up something and stretch it. Pandemic because it's more bang for the buck. It can be stretched. The potency of it is so real. And to give you a visual, an idea, 3 grams of table salt equals a lethal dose of pure fentanyl. And I'm talking about the more table salt, the little 3 grams of table salt, to give you an idea, equals a lethal dose of pure fentanyl. So then that also goes into the mixing of the substances. That at first, that was one of the main things when we have bad benefits. That's what a lot of people was dying from, bad benefits. Because you're mixing this deadly potent substance with something else, right? It takes on the property of whatever else you mix it with. And you put it in something, you mix it. And remember, we got to do a little rare, most of them anyway, mixes anyway, right? They just go down. They didn't know nothing about that. But anyway, they're mixing these substances. So just like mixing cake batter, if you're mixing cake batter, when you mix a cake batter, how do you want it to look? You want it smooth. When you still clump in it, what does that mean?
You got some work to do.
You got some work to do because it's not mixed well and that's more concentrated in an area. You don't want to buy no cake or no cookie and taste no powder, no clump, right? So you're gonna keep doing it, right? Because you mix it. But just think about them, they're mixing it in something. And they can tell when it's a more concentrated amount. You get what I'm saying? They can see that clump. But it can be simple that's clumped together that when they mix it in the molds to press the pill, they get it, right? Yeah. When they mix it in those molds to press the pill, that's why you can press the pill. And we have 2 pills that have lethal doses and the other ones don't. That's how you can have 2 individuals that break a pill. One take one hand and overdose, the other one don't, because it's more concentrated in that other half of that pill. So we heard of overdoses in all different type of ways. So now you know why we're in crisis again, right? Because the stuff is like people can't handle it handle the medication because a lot of people don't know a lot about it. It's know it's cold, it's good, they're basically trying to get out of it. It ultimately also that a lot of people I see think back in the day. It used to be some street codes back in the day. I have 16 years clean sober, so when I was using, there was some street codes, right? You don't feel like you're because you know, they don't get out there. You let them step. But reality was, it's not of that. I see the individual children and loved ones and siblings. It's no more you teach them about it because they don't know about it. You're not used to say don't teach them because they don't want to be trying to want to try. No, it's better to you to teach them and educate them than their friends teach them and educate them. Or TikTok teach them and educate them. Because they're going to be miseducated. These days, you lay the facts out and you give them a choice. Knowledge is power and power to make an informed decision. Yeah, they may only make that decision by being out and taking exams from a friend, because a friend's coming to have someone with this, or you know, you can feel whatever with this, you know, this can help you with your anxiety or whatever. But they need to know that these pills can look just like the pharmaceutical dispense medications. Because again, you know, I talked about how they have a bad practice where 2 out of maybe 10 or 2 out of 50 or whatever, 3 out of 50. These days, what we did a press conference, the TBI, the health department, myself, a lot of us did a press conference a couple of months ago, because what it was that they were confiscating more and more pills. Say they're confiscating 100 pills, all 100 have lethal doses. That ain't an accident. You feel me? And furthermore, they were looking exactly like a pharmaceutical dispense medication. And that's what made it even more scary. Not only did not appear to be an accident, right? Because all the pills had lethal doses, but the pills that they were finding looked exactly like a pharmaceutical dispense medication. And so to the skilled eye, they weren't able to decipher the difference between the fresh pill and the pharmaceutical dispense medication. These are actual pharmacists who've been doing pills, and who've been dispensing pills for years, and they couldn't tell the difference. Whereas the ones that were mixed, mixes maybe back in the past, you can tell, maybe there's a discrepancy on the pill, go get an L, whatever L, some upside down, June book, whatever, just go and sit down. Maybe somewhere you can cut all the colors off a little bit or something. These days, exactly like a pharmaceutical dispense medication, and finding more and more baggage that all of them have been developing. So that's what we are right now. That's the 2013 crisis. We'll go to the next screen. And I may skip a slide or something because I've done it so much, I never already explained what's on that slide. So you keep going about 3 times. Hit it 3 times. Hit it again. Okay, right there. No, back. So this right here, as you can see from 2012 to 2016, opioid overdose with fentanyl was nearly non-existent. But you see from 2016 to 2020, it's kind of like took off. And that's when we get the 2 out of 3 overdose deaths in 2020 involved of fentanyl. So again, at the beginning, 2012, 2013, it was different substances. I think at that time it was prescription opioids, right? But you see how prescription opioids peaked in 2016, then it started coming down. That's when a lot of Oxycontin was out there. They had pain management clinics, or what they call those pill mills, like on every corner, they start shutting some of them down. You know, at one point in time, there was a lot of different pain management clinics on every corner, but they weren't being regulated. But when the government started regulating, a lot of them started shutting down this stuff. But again, that's what caused another issue, which is people going to the streets for brand substances. You go to the next one.
Jeez, my fault, y'all.
It's fine.
You use a little arrow button.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. So in 2023, 3,000 Tennesseans died of drug overdose, and that represents a 45% increase from 2020. I would tell you that 2021 data is out. They just have not updated our presentation. But last year was an all-time high. It was reported. I did something on Channel 2 News the other day. I don't know if you guys seen it or not. But they wanted me to talk about the word in the street about overdose trends going downward. And there was some reports saying that they had left overdoses this year. You gotta think, this is a comparison to last year, which was an all-time high. So it's great that it's going down, but even because it's going down, don't get comfortable, because we're comparing that to high. And then again, 2022 is not over with. We still got a couple weeks. And during this season, holiday seasons, what they call it, the winter balloon, all of that, love, loss, grief. You gotta check on your people, because suicide is real during this year, or this time of year. Using substances, when you don't use substances, is real big during this time of year. So we're not over this year. That's what they told me, the guy Trevor from CDC, when I called and asked him what's true about the trend. He said, yeah, but just tell people don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable with that, because some people are like, oh, it's going down, so we good. No, you ain't good, because it's still live, and it's still real. Also, I say to like students, college students, that sometimes they take Adderall or something. Certain conferences have very rigorous study, like academics, and they take some medication to help them stay awake and help them with energy and stuff. These days, if you're not getting what it is, that you take hand to hand from a licensed pharmacist, I mean, not even your best friend. I know somebody overdosed with something their brother got. You know? Don't forget what you gotta say, don't forget your question, okay? These, you just got, if you're not getting hand to hand, I like to say we relate my stories. Christian, Dr. Christian, he works with Vanderbilt, and he does a lot with vaccinations and, COVID vaccinations and stuff. And he's all about Naloxone. He works a lot at the very hard to serve communities, at-risk communities. But he was at church, and he was ready to use Naloxone. I thought Christian be ready, right? But if you don't want to be put in like I'm like, okay. in a very, distinguished, very distinguished, church. Out of like Fairview, what's that out there, once was meant to Fairview, like, so it's not regular everyday people, right? So, Glenn is very high economic individuals, right? So you wouldn't think that would go on. But Granny fell out of the church. So the thing about Naloxone, remember, if that was going on, he finished Naloxone, because he been ready to use it, right? He done Naloxone, and grandma got us one. And so what's going on? Because they know it had been with an opioid overdose. But what it was this, she was having an ailment in church. She had a pain, something was right. She had a grandson who had come to church. He gave some pain. It was something that was part of the big batch. And she had overdose. Again, we have first time use experiments of those. That's why you want to have Naloxone. And you can be anywhere these days and experience someone. Again, another story. I love to share stories. I went out somewhere, you know, I didn't dress up and all of that. Doing the training, you know, I just give you an idea of people, Fortune 500 like company, everybody that can tell us a little about there, you know, all of that stuff. So I did a training with this group. And so I could tell that they would be late, come or whatever, they just kind of know a bit. But several months later, a woman called me and she was just like crying, and I could tell something was going on. And so she was trying to ask me where she disposed of some medication that she had found, a substance she had found. And then she wanted to explain her son had a fatal overdose the day before. And they was cleaning up his room and they found some substance and they wanted to know where they did, how they dispose of the substance. So I didn't ask any more questions, then I asked my follow-up letter. Because she had my number, she got my number for one of my trainings, right? A couple months after that, I followed up with her, checking in on see how she was doing. And she just said something I didn't know. I just wish I would have listened. And so she explained that she had got my information from a training, but during the presentation, she didn't think she would come across somebody that was over there. She didn't think it would affect nobody because she said, what am I supposed to do for listening? What we provide for our children, he had no reason to use substance. But remember, that's a stigma around it, because it can be a first-time user or experiment or anyone, right? It could be a child who's studying and needs some anxiety or stress or or something, and they can get it from a friend. And so this mom said that she wished she would have listened because she could have had the Naloxone there at the house that could potentially save her son's life. So again, Naloxone wants that you rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. But as you can see from this part, part of the presentation, Davidson County, Knox County, Shelby County has the highest rates of overdoses across Tennessee. This is some more data about fatal overdoses. As you can see at the bottom right hand of the screen, if you're facing the screen, it has a number for non-fatal overdose streams, those overdoses that were able to be reversed. And so, you know, overdose can be reversed through Naloxone, the medication. But not everybody who goes to get their overdose reversed goes to the doctor. I always start at this part of the presentation to explain how important it is for a person getting the necessary medical attention post an overdose. Because what it is, that person does want to withdraw after you burst an overdose. Because we're stripping that receptor of the opioid. But a lot of times people say, I don't want to go to the doctor, I just want to lay me and go to sleep, you know, because of guilt, shame, and stigma around overdose, right? The gig is up then when you go to the doctor about overdose. So a lot of times someone may not want to go to the doctor. And you as a friend may be like, he's better, now it's okay. You scared me, but you're better, right? But just know a person going to accept an overdose without using. Meaning, when you administer this medication, and we have the nasal spray, they have the nasal version, nasal, intranasal, and they have intramuscular where you can administer with an out of thigh what it needed. But when you use this medication to reverse the overdose, it lasts in a person's system for 30 to 90 minutes. What it does, it goes to that receptor. It has a strong affinity for that receptor than opioid, and pulls that opioid off and restores breathing, because that's what's happening in an overdose. We'll talk more about that in the presentation. But it builds a force around the receptor for 30 to 90 minutes. So any opioids to try to attach back to the receptor, it doesn't get to it. But after 30 to 90 minutes, what happens is you have residual opioids in your system. It starts back attacking. So we have had a lot of stories. I have a personal story. My son had a friend who came over to the house who overdose had just been reversed. He refused medical attention. He thinks he wanted to lay down. He wasn't ready to go home, deal with the girl and all of that, right? So he wanted to lay down. He never got back up. He died of a second overdose. Also, people who actually reverse that overdose, they may be inclined to want to use to get out those withdrawals, right? But if they got this in the system, it's defending that receptor, so they may put a whole bunch of opioids in their system, trying to relieve that withdrawal sickness, because it's in their system.
That's also called de-edibilization.
We call what?
It's the same place as de-edibilization.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Somebody knows it. He knows it.
That was great.
Well, strongly encourage the person to get medicine. They'll monitor them, try to get sure they're out of that danger zone. Oh, what was the question you had there?
You kind of answered it when you were talking about the young child that overdosed.
Mhm.
I was wondering, is there any data or numbers that show that music video or social media contributes to the overdose?
I'm not sure about the data, but I will say this is that these days children are exposed to a lot more stuff that, you know, if they have, if I take care of my child, if your child got any kind of electronic anything, TikTok and them, all those social media platforms teaches them everything, but it miseducates them. But a lot of times you'll hear a song that promotes purpose that use, you know, or marketing use, you know what I'm saying? And this just teaches the good part, the feeling of it. You know, it teaches a false narrative of this medication, and they don't give them that you can be craving pills later and you can die and all of that. So I'm sure social media plays a great part in the children experiment, because sometimes, you know, parents will be able to scare a child into enough to not use certain things. But now children see things, because you know, ain't nothing real on social media. Most of the stuff on social media is not real, right? It just capture moments and glances and all that. But again, it miseducates a lot because people only clip, you know, like look at that 10-second line, be like, oh, I'm tripping off and everything I'm detecting, but ain't sure that nobody overdose. Or some sure social media has a lot to do with the process. Children be exposed to so much more there. Even if they So we know addiction is a type of chronic medical disease that involves complex interaction with brain circuits, genetics, environment, and individuals' lived experiences. But just as cardiovascular disease damages the heart, we know chronic substance use damages the brain. Dopamine, again, is a neurotransmitter made in the brain and plays a role in how we feel and is important. So when a person uses substances, they may be basically overuse that dopamine supply, and so that creates lows where individuals may want to be trying to keep using, try to get a certain effect, but actually they're not able to get it because they basically. And we see people that's in recovery they're still having issues with regulating feelings and wondering why they're not able to feel good during certain times. They're supposed to feel good because we studies show that their dopamine supply may have not built up to where it needs to be to achieve that they're supposed to feel, because they've achieved it in a negative way and it's affected that supply of dopamine. Which I know you'll probably teach me more about that than I know. ACE is adverse childhood experiences. I heard of that.
Oh, yeah.
Not what's wrong with you, but what has happened to you, and let's find out what's right with you. A lot of people don't care what you know, they just want to know what you care. Things are real. I work with trafficked youth. I work with, we have the privilege to work with a lot of different demographics of poverty, trauma, individuals, and the stories I hear and the things the children have to go through that they can't even control. Again, that's why I'm taking on the perspective of helping them to find what's right with them and, helping them to move forward and try to live a self-sufficient, productive life. But we know when children or people when people as youth or young adult endure certain hardships like abuse of any kind, household members addicted to drugs or substances or alcohol, household members incarcerated, so forth and so on, that if their ACE score is high, and again, it's usually they ask us 10 questions, how many times you answer yes, that's supposed to be your ACE score. And then when it's a high number, it says it's correlated with a variety of adverse, like obesity, depression, and substance use issues.
This one, keep it here because this is also the mic.
Okay. Genetics and family history play a big role in substance use disorder. Co-occurring mental health, again, we don't know what came first. Sometimes we get an individual, when you get them stable, you know, you have units or places that they call co-occurring facilities where they work with both the mental health and the substance use component. We have individuals that once you get them stable, their mental health will emerge. Again, I like to share stories. You know, I work at a detox facility in Meharry, center, and you know, we get individuals coming in on detox often, and you know, that's pleasant. They can be going through detox. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You know, sick and some more stuff. But this one individual on the 6th or 7th day came out of the room. I know who that was. I said, "Well, it's real Slim Shady, please stand up." And it was like, I mean, his mental health was like, he was talking all, you know, it was a lot. And my coworker was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" I said, "Well, he's probably one of those individuals that use substances to help mitigate his mental health symptoms. But once we got detox and got cleaned off those substances, his mental health really showed up." We have some individuals, that's true, why they use is because they deal with severe mental health symptoms. And the only thing that they have treated is using substances. That's a real place. But also you see people that may appear to have mental health issues, or they exhibit a lot of mental health symptoms, but once you get them clean off of substances, they start stabilizing. And they use maybe just therapy and maybe not a lot of medication to deal. But when they was using substances, it was like, oh my gosh, what's going on with this person? So that's why they have co-occurring facilities to work with both the mental health and the substance use, because they usually go hand in hand. Okay, next, please. Community level factors like having access to quality education, healthcare, neighborhood, build community, social and community context, economic stability, all this plays a big role in substance use disorder. So we know that drug use falls on a continuum. We have abstinence to low risk to chronic dependency. Also, we have to be aware of personal biases. I'm in the counseling field, so I just, you know, it's hard for me to hear people say, "I know exactly how to feel." Like, no, you don't. And I said that sometimes. And they're like, taking it back, right? Oh my, I'm like, sure you don't. So just like we lost my mom, I lost my mom, we both had different experiences with our mom, so you don't know exactly how I feel. You have an idea, you can say, "I can only imagine." But we both have different experiences and different things. And sometimes we bring that intentionally, unintentionally to helping and working with individuals. Meaning we go and we think that we know. We don't know. And sometimes we unintentionally or intentionally impose our upbringing, our values and stuff on other people. Because we see people doing things or having certain behaviors, again, not what's wrong with you, but what has happened to you. Their behavior used to come from something else. It's the origin of those behaviors, right? But you have to be willing to get on a journey, a healing journey with that individual in order to really help and to assist. So you gotta ask questions, you gotta be willing to be empathetic and find out what's going on. Because I hear stories of children like, I get it. I have the same parents, oh my God, I get why if the parents doing this in front of the provider. I get why the children is doing what they're doing. So again, being aware of unintentional personal bias, because not everybody has it like us. Sometimes it's hard to fathom children at 7, 8 years old, been sold by their parents and you know, their mom and having to take care of their siblings all night, come to school the next day. But that is some people's reality. So again, asking questions, getting down with a person on their level. They don't take from you for finding out what has happened to you. But one thing as a provider, I know I'm sensing that you guys may be a provider, right, physicians or whatever. As a provider, again, it doesn't take from you to get with a person to be empathetic with them on that journey of healing, right? Because the whole goal of any interaction, any human interaction, I believe, is to maximize positive responses and minimize the negative responses. So knowing the history, knowing what you're dealing with, it makes a big difference instead of just assuming certain things. Okay, I'm back. I sound bad if I get on my tangent.
Mhm.
Okay, so you hear me say a person with chronic substance use disorder, not an addict. I know that's a word that's still used, but you know, again, a person with chronic substance use disorder, don't that sound better? Language does matter. It's like our SSP programs, which we're talking about, syringe service programs, which is another harm reduction tool, just like Naloxone is. They do more than give out crack pipes, condoms, and needles. Y'all heard of the SSP programs?
Mhm.
Syringe service programs is more than that. They provide safe drug use tools. So you hear when I say it like that, it's better than to say crack pack, condoms, and needles, but that's what it is they do, right? But they do referrals and testing and some more stuff. But just like if you're working with someone, you're trying to address something with individual, and you say an addict, I know you're an addict, your mama addict or something like that, they're gonna be standout. So when you say addict, you think about Pookie on New Jack City and Frankie on Friday. That's just automatically affects what you get when you say addict. But when you say a person experienced chronic substance use disorder, you don't immediately go to Pookie on New Jack City doing a running man in the laboratory. Okay, I'm back. So language does matter. Again, harm reduction, we already talked about that. Again, not everybody's ready or able to stop using, so that scientific proven ways to decrease the risk are essential, like medication assistance treatment programs, Naloxone, the syringe service programs. How many of y'all heard of MAT programs, the medication assisted treatment programs? Okay, we're gonna go to the next slide. MAT, yeah, medication assisted treatment programs. We'll talk about that shortly. Harm reduction is core. These are the core principles. We want to come with a non-judgmental approach. We want to realize behavior change is an incremental process. Also, we know complex social factors influence vulnerability to substance use and substance-related harm like poverty, social inequality, and trauma. And also, we want to empower those who use substances to be the primary agents in their change. So these are medication assisted treatment programs. It's a medically proven tool to support and sustain recovery. And what it is that they are individuals that have been dependent on opioids. Remember, what did I say the big thing about opioids? What's the big thing about opioids?
People with prescriptions.
People being prescribed and they was being deceived about the what? The addictive property. Remember, that's the issue. That's the whole issue. It's the addictive property. It's just it's the consequence of use. A lot of us will still be using it for what the consequences, right? But when it comes to opioids, remember we talk about the physical component to it, the physical. So when a person stops using, they're not able to function. They become dope sick on whatever level. It's not fun. So that's why a lot of people using chronic substance use disorder who don't stop. It ain't about fun and getting high no more. Like we can remember unintentional personal biases, like they must be having fun. No, we ain't having fun out there. It ain't fun. You can't stop. If you try to, you get sick. You can't do that to me, you get sick. And that goes for anybody. So then they have these programs which satisfies the medication they prescribe, satisfies that opioid receptor. So they don't have to go through the withdrawal process. And so a lot of people don't like it. So you keep them on a drug. I said it's kind of like the worst of the two evils. Doctor prescribed managed compared to unmanaged and abused. You get what I'm saying? These medication assisted treatments like buprenorphine, methadone, Suboxone, Vivitrol, Sublocade, it is prescribed, and these are the benefits of these medications. But ultimately, it's the lesser of the two evils, the best way I can explain. Meaning people go on and to be functional, self-sufficient people. You may be working with a lot of people, you never know. People representing you in court, people working on you. You know, you don't never know their history. You know, we just see the glory, but we don't know the story behind the glory. A lot of individuals may very well be on medication-assisted treatment programs, maintenance medication, you never know. And the reality is when they get into these clinics, they're supposed to be titrated off, right? If the goal of most of them is to kind of wean you off, where you won't have to go through that harsh or rash withdrawal process. But the reality is sometimes people do stay on an extended amount of years. That's between them and their providers, them and the doctors, but again, this is better compared to the other scenario. So we already talked about syringe service programs. Anybody know what Harry has one now, but one of the long-standing ones is street work. Y'all ever heard of street work?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a syringe service program. That's what that is. But they have other ones now that are coming up. And these are the services, as I talked about earlier, that they provide. Does anybody kind of understand what an SSP program is when I said about those services? Because their philosophy is just like us, you know, meeting a person where they are. We know everybody's not everybody able to stop using. So they provide safe drug use tools. So they realize you're gonna use. So it's better for one person to have their own needle than everybody use the same needle, everybody got the same thing. That's their philosophy. What exactly they gonna do? So it ain't even encouraging to do what I'm already. So it's just kind of like me providing services to you to give you a quality of care, a quality of life. Why are you doing that? Until you can get to a point, because I not only give you the needles, I also do case management, I also do referrals, I also do HIV testing, I do all kind of other testing. Because what I do, I'm gonna tell you like, I'm gonna tell you people, when I got after all my years of my chronic substance use disorder, people hear you and see you and they never know what you've been through. But I was that person that was still up there and y'all locked the door, y'all probably laughing at they be around. Look up. I was that one, right? But I just want to say that, you know, people who again, if a lot of times people don't care what you know, you don't know what you care. One of my moments of change was having an interaction with somebody who looked past my faults and everything that I thought I needed. It treated me humanely. Look upon me like you guys see me as a equal, not a person like, ooh, hold on, you know, like a disgrace or whatever. They look at me like, hey, you can do it. And they hope that me and I was able to help them hope in myself. So that's what I try to do each day is I try to inspire hope and to provide help and encouragement. So I think to me about isn't encouraging you, the reality they don't use. I thought so many parents are like, I wish it was a magic something I can tell you or something, but you're gonna have to let it run its course. You're gonna have to let it run its course and they're gonna have to be tagged. And one thing I know for sure, and I've seen it happen so many times, when the pain is still the same, it becomes greater than the pain of changing, a person will change. But we want to try to give them a quality of life that they can, because the reality is they're using and they ain't got number one needle, and everybody around the camp, Bloomberg may have, man, it can be sad too. But anybody can have something and we share the same needle, that means we're gonna spread it. So now you gotta deal with 10 people with HIV, hepatitis C. But you don't know how many people who maybe have dodged that bullet because they had those fake drug use too. So you can't be on thing. Because you don't use it, right? They don't do it. Yeah. Or child gonna do what they gonna do, the children too. That's where we are right now. People gonna do what they gonna do. All right, it's five organizations that operate 12 locations across Tennessee. They were just legalized in 2017. We're gonna go through these last slides pretty quickly. So we are talking about what an overdose is, when it talks about of a drug, a combination of drug overwhelms the body, and a person can overdose on over-counter medication, anything. But the overdose look different. They look different. You can go to the next one. So these are risk factors in opioid overdose, mixing substances, using like computer no use, counterfeit pills, and unknown substances. And I don't want to stay right there because back in the day, remember these back in the day sayings and stuff? It used to be, no, real talk. It used to be that, you know, after a period of no use, that's when people's very vulnerable to overdose. That means that tolerance level went down. Meaning the person went to stay with grandma for 3 months and they came back, and they went to rehab for 2 months, they came back and they tried to reuse. If they were to relapse, we need the same amount they did before it stopped. So they could be too much too quick, too soon, they're very vulnerable to overdose. But I want to say that what they have out there now, the different strands of fentanyl, Junebug and Ray Ray can overdose. You know, Junebug and Ray Ray people they use every day, all day. They can get a hold of something and just remember one pill kill, one pour kill. It's just like Russian roulette. Right now, using any substance that you're not getting hand from a licensed pharmacist, you playing Russian roulette. That's where we are right now. Because again, it can look just like the pharmaceutical dispense. Your cousin could have been taking the whole bottle and they get the last one. That last one could be something laced with fentanyl. So did I kind of make that? So again, it's not just your tolerance level go down. You can use every day and get a hold of something that's real potent and have an overdose. So we talked about this again about how the opioid attaches to the receptor. And what it is that when that opioid attaches to the receptor, it blocks pain. So that's why I give that person a euphoric feeling. That's why a lot of people use it. Because that feeling it gives when that opioid attaches to that receptor and get out and relax. And it's kind of like, have you ever seen one of those comedy things where you may have a man in the chair kicked back and the trash can is on fire and the books behind them is on fire. He's like, this is okay. I can live with this, right? So it's not, you know, chill, like we I can deal with this. That's kind of like the feeling of opioid it gives you. You know, again, someone has a high-paced life, a fast life, and if they're taking opioids, it makes them give that euphoric feeling they can handle this, they can do this. I call it the chill pill when I deal with the children, right? So when that opioid attaches to that receptor, it does block pain. That's why they prescribe it for pain, but it gives that feeling. Remember, it gives you ability to tolerate the pain. But that same receptor also affects breathing. So that's what's going on. So opioids affect the brain's regulation of breathing. So overdoses occur when too many opioids attached to that receptor, and it causes breathing to stop. So that's the idea of it. So these are some of the common opioids right here. Knowledge is power, power to make a more informed decision. Again, opioids, these are some of the common ones. These are the street names. If you're around any kind of group, you know, siblings or whatever, you may want to listen out to some of these names. I always use jungle juice as an example. Somebody may keep talking about going to get jungle juice, right? You may be, well, I like the reds. That ain't what they're talking about. I'm just saying. But they think you don't know, right? Explain, you know, they call you lame and quail, whatever. So in saying that, they're thinking, you know, you're not knowing, but they're talking about it. So you can do an intervention. If you keep hearing some of these words used, you can always Google street names for opioids, trending street names for opioids, and you can get a list of those things. So this right here, I talked about this already. And someone mentioned the animal tranquilizer. That's carfentanil. That was the pharmaceutical purpose for carfentanil. It's used in animal tranquilizers. The last carfentanil related overdose death that we have documented was in November of last year, because we see more of the fentanyl related overdose deaths, but just know carfentanil is 4,000 times more potent than heroin and 100 times more potent than fentanyl. So I had somebody ask me, that's carfentanil in that metal container right there, right? And so they said, something in there, yes, but it's just barely enough. It don't take much to, these are lethal doses to an adult individual of these medications right here. Also, I want to say, before I forget, that Narcan, Naloxone, whether it be Narcan or Cloxide, is safe to use on a child as young as a year, because we get overdose reports of like toddlers. And so you want to know how that happened? Y'all know how that happened?
Breastfeeding.
Go to medicine cabinet, go to Nana, you can be at Nana's house, and Nana dropped a pill a couple months ago, and the child found it, think it's candy, right? Or they can be with a caretaker who's being careless and who may be abusing substances like heroin, or have it in a pill, or have it in a residue in a bag or something. They can pick that bag and put it in their mouth. So just know this is safe to use all the way up on the toddler, someone 1 year old, all the way up to somebody that's 90 years old. Okay.
Do you know breastfeeding can also transfer?
I haven't heard any reports of that, breastfeeding where someone is overdosed on fentanyl, because you know some people use fentanyl. They just they use it for that maximum high. And unfortunately, when people, I was saying earlier about old things that used to be said, like don't kill your customers, you know, these days if somebody died, that's good. What? Their philosophy is somebody died, that means your stuff is good and other people don't flock to you because nobody never think it's them. Remember, addicts take it from the back part of the money, not that front part. So that's the reality that if somebody died, you know, I'm gonna be honest, I work in treatment and I hear all kinds of stories. And I had someone that shared to me and they were dealing with the grief and the shame around it. But they shared with me, I said, you just don't share it much more with me, but they shared with me how they would make back with some things that, you know, unfortunately, to that to die or to build up business. Their business kind of went down, but they would make up something where someone would. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but unfortunately, that's how people think. That's how addicts think. Yeah. All right.
So they're probably suicidal as well.
Huh?
It's probably like a sense of suicidal.
No, it's just the person don't know. Because the person, I think every time you use that's a form of suicide. I think anytime you do self-inflicted things using something, that's because I'm on this side now, but I get it when you're dealing with addiction, that's an overwhelming drive to do something, despite the negative consequences. But what I was saying just then was basically the dealer would sell. And whoever came up at that time, you know, that was like Russian roulette. That was the one they got. I don't think they intentionally gave it to people. Maybe once they liked it, it was just kind of like, you know, yeah. Just to get money, because your business would pick up, then your money would pick up, because they would know Sally bought from John and Sally overdose. That means John has got some good stuff. That'll be the word in the street. That's unfortunate, but yeah. All right. So yeah, this is hard and this professional now you dealing and you're working with people and you're talking and you're hearing these stories and stuff, and it's unfortunate, but that's what we are right now. So these are the signs and symptoms of opioid overdose. Basic unresponsiveness. Remember, a person not breathing. That's what's going on. When it says fingernails and lips turn blue or purplish black, if a person is darker skinned, it will be like a gray ashy color. Remember, they're not breathing. The gargling sound, snoring like sound, we know that's called the something. It's the death rattle. Medical students are trying to teach me the word. I don't forget it, but it's called something breathing. But it's basically when they're in their stages of passing. That's that sound right there you hear. So yeah, it's a lot. Okay, next. So these are stimulants. Again, stimulants are a group of drugs that increase activity in our body, and that's both illicit, which are street stimulants, and they can lead to overdose and prescription stimulants. Adderall, Ritalin, crystal meth. You remember when people was there, we talking about bath salts? And then people biting off people's faces and stuff. We were like, oh my God, what was in there? Right? That's what stimulants do. Stimulants have both a psychological and a physical component to it. So yeah, you can keep going. So a stimulant overdose is called overramping. If you ever seen a friend or know someone or maybe seen someone on the street that seemed like they was extremely paranoid and out in the street fighting somebody, talking, they would probably have an experience of stimulant overdose. The thing about stimulant overdose that you don't necessarily die from it unless you have that stroke, that physical part of it, you have a stroke or heart attack. But what happens in a stimulant overdose is that they can experience severe physical event, like what I just mentioned, and also mental health events like extreme panic, paranoia, not just regular, but extreme panic, paranoia, hallucinations, and psychosis. I call it geeking at its finest. Anybody know about geeking?
I'm gonna say no to everything.
Yeah, we all last right there. I knew something. I call it geeking at its finest. If you see somebody that's extremely paranoid, you know, they were having a stimulant overdose, but you don't all the time die unless you have that stroke or heart attack or something. But it's very scary, very scary. And it can happen anytime to anybody at any time, even somebody's been using it. It's just like that's how they body reacts at that time. Or they take another stimulant. When you did one thing, you know, say when you did ecstasy, but then this time you do cocaine. You can flip out on cocaine, don't flip out on ecstasy, or you can be vice versa. Okay. So these are the risk factors again, stuff that'll make you geek, make you just trip out your mind, being away for too long, dehydration, not eating enough, mixing substances, uncomfortable environment, you sit out a lot, company that makes you feel unsafe, you know, you can be real paranoid, irregular heartbeat, high blood pressure. So again, these are the signs and symptoms, the physical symptoms: convulsions, chest pain, tremors, feeling paralyzed, unable to sleep, rapid increase in temperature. The psychological symptoms could be extreme anxiety, paranoia, panic, hallucinations, irritability, aggressiveness, hyper awareness of surroundings. You ever deal with somebody taking a stimulus and they think the TBI, the FBI, the LMOP, everybody after be like, dude, you ain't got to put a nipple piece, why are you tripping? Because you're saying that. They extinct. They have an extreme hyper awareness of surroundings. Like, what's going on? Who's that? It's just crazy. All right. So we gotta talk about this. We're on 3 overdose deaths in 2020 involve multiple substances. That's the mixing of the substances. You want to respond to an overdose and you want to assess your situation, your personal assess your personal safety and the safety of the other individual or the individual. So this is something that people have been talking about a while. As far they was talking about the fentanyl poisoning overdose and do touching like dollars and touching all that. Okay, I just want to say this. I said this on my training. The same doctor at the corner store is in Brentwood at Publix too. I just want to get that out the way. So don't be. If you're gonna be scared over here, you be scared out there first.
Money that's getting touched.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people thinking, oh, it's you gotta be a corner store, it happened at the corner store. You know, a lot of people that's the hype, you know, you go to corner stores. Well, remember, it's the stigma. It's thinking those neighborhoods that they're gonna be more likely to sell drugs. They like, well, no, they sell drugs everywhere, right? So those dogs can be that too. But in saying that, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I'm not saying it's extremely rare. Like even responding, because I had someone ask me about someone doing CPR with someone and they overdose. Remember, fentanyl has to be ingested in some way. When we went to PBI, they had amounts of fentanyl. They had one pile of fentanyl because they was just showing the pills that confiscate and all that. And so they had one pile of fentanyl that had the potential of killing over 200,000 people because of the amount of it. And I'm like, oh my God, the table fall over. But just know it has to be careful, Andrea. No, it has to be airborne. It has to get injected in some way. But when it comes to touching, it has to be have an opening or something on your skin or something. But just know this right here. If that has the touch of it and it absorbs, that had to be a very, very high level of it. And that usually on history, but the goal is to cut it. I'm talking about that's the on the back of the truck coming from type stuff. And not everybody gets privileged to that. You know what I'm saying? So that you don't hit the street because the goal is to cut it. So if it's something like that, just that potent, we hardly ever. So we do have to practice mindfulness. I'm just gonna say that, right? People have gotten scared of touching money and all that. No, we have to practice mindfulness, right? If you respond to an overdose or you believe something, it's something, you just want to use gloves. You know, ain't no more grabbing stuff and tasting it, smelling it. Don't do that. Don't do it. I tell everybody, don't do it. You find some of your kids' room, don't touch it, don't test, don't do it. Because it could be something that ultimately can cost you your life. You want to use latex gloves, you want to wash your hands with soap and water, not hand sanitizer, because sanitizer can open up your pores. And you don't want to eat, drink, smoke, or touch your face before washing hands. Just practicing mindfulness and being careful. What you don't want to do in an overdose, response to overdose, is put them in a cold bath or shower, giving them any other substance. We got how many medical people in here? Just this one.
I'm seeing it.
Okay, CNA. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you this. So why I've asked people why they inject people with milk. I've heard people do that. You know what I think it is? You know, yeah. So you know why I think that is? You remember back in the what?
Like I think
Yeah.
it is because it calcifies or like maybe gets a block between those receptors. Like say you smoking and you get too high, eat some ice cream or something because it'll bring you down.
So I'm thinking something along that line. I think about, back in the day we had that poison hotline you call and they like you take some poison, get milk or whatever. I think the people that's not thinking correct, but they kind of remember that. They kind of like, okay, well, maybe we inject them with milk. It kind of reverses the overdose. So anyway, don't do that. We've heard all kinds of things. So this is, these are the things you don't want to do because we have naloxone or that reverses the overdose successfully. Okay, next one. Go, keep going about 3 times. So go again, go again, go again, go again, go again. Okay, so this is the idea of visual of how it works. Again, that opioid is on that receptor. When you administer naloxone, it has a strong affinity for that receptor. It pulls that opioid off that receptor and it restores breathing. When you administer this medication, you want to wait 2 to 3 minutes before administering the second dose or another dose. Remember, it's no magic number. We heard of people, somebody overdosed in a treatment facility I work at the other day, and it took 5 doses of the double strength. He still didn't come back at that time. But after EMS came, they were able to give some more and brought him back. So it's no magic number. Don't have your boxes, usually 2 doses to come in like a kid. Don't have your kid and give them 2 doses and be like, what is the thing to day? No, you keep trying. You keep trying. Don't be like, it ain't gonna wait. No, that's what you call 911 simultaneously with that first dose. Because 911 EMS will be on their way to administer more. But what you have, again, if you have a box, even if you have 1 applicator, you still use what you got. It's a one-time use. You just gotta remember the 3 P's. Peel, place, and press. It's just like a nasal spray if you was using nasal spray. Because it's mucus, it's blood mucus membrane, is that it? You don't have to be. Do they have to be breathing? Do they have to be sniffing? No. If it has to be soon after an overdose, remember the person ain't breathing. So it's only a matter of time that you have to start administering this medication. You can't come up on somebody 30 minutes the next day and be like, I'm gonna give them some Naloxone. That ain't gonna happen, Kathy. I'm just saying. So soon after the overdose, you want to administer this medication. You want to wait 2 to 3 minutes. You'll measure the next one. You will know when it works. Cause remember, when that overdose reverse, you're stripping that receptor, so that person gonna wake up very angry, agitated, this and more stuff, cause they're gonna be in immediate withdrawals.
You said at the center of emergency research that should be paid 2
Huh?
doses of naloxone, that should be 2 doses of naloxone.
No, I'm sorry, when you administer, wait 2 to 3 minutes. And you administer the next dose. It's usually 2 doses in the box, but some people may have access to 3 or 4 boxes, right? So you may have 6 doses, but just administer whatever you have in 2 to 3 minute intervals, but don't stop at the 2nd dose because there's no magic number to reverse that overdose. And remember, it's no magic number. It doesn't say you have to take 2 doses if it ain't working 3 doses. Because again, I had someone someone there in intensive care now, but still they they used the Cloxado, the double strength, and they used 8 of the, they have used 5 of these. That means they gave him 10 doses instantly right here. But he hadn't came around, EMS came and got him, they administered some more, and he finally came around.
So
So I'm just saying it's not magic
at
number.
what point do you stop?
When you run out of naloxone,
So you literally just keep going.
you,
So-
And 2 to
in
3 minute
minute
increments.
increments, yeah.
2 to 3
If
minutes.
they come to you and they're-
No, if they come to you, your job is done. But then,
But then now there's the
but
911
now
part.
the next thing, because you've already called 911. Remember, you want to call 911 simultaneously with that first dose. So we know your message is already in round. Because remember, you gotta wait 2 to 3 minutes when you're administering it, right? So you can administer it, because anytime you find somebody unconscious, right, unresponsive, that's the main thing, right? They're unconscious, unresponsive, you wanna call their name, do the stern one, we try to get them woke, sometimes we know they take something, sometimes we don't know, right? But then you administer that dose, because I met the fire chief a couple weeks ago, he said when they go out to someone or respond to a call when someone's unresponsive, they automatically administer naloxone to rule out overdose. So they want to say it don't hurt to use it. So you find someone unconscious or unresponsive, you administer the medication, you call 911, and then you wait 2 to 3 minutes for you to administer another dose, if you have another dose. So if 911 is en route, you continue to administer whatever you have. If you have 5 doses, 6 doses, whatever you have, in 2 to 3 minute intervals until 911 comes to take over. But if they come to at that 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, you don't have to administer no more naloxone. Because they're 2. Then what you want to do is put them in a recovery position. Because remember, they're going to be going through withdrawal, so they may be vomiting or something like that. You don't want them to aspirate, right? So you put them in a recovery position. You want to discourage use. You don't want them to try to use them. They may like, man, I need something. I'm sick. You want to discourage use because you don't use the medication. They ain't gonna be able to get high. They ain't gonna be able to feel it. But what it could do when it wears off, then they start back attaching and then they have another overdose. Did I explain that how to use it? Did everybody get it? Do you get it? All right, come next one. We already talked about the different forms, Cloxado, Narcan. Again, these are both versions of naloxone. You want to try to maintain responsiveness. You can go to the next one. We already talked about the pill placed and pressed. It's only 1 dose in these. It's only 1 dose. So you can't give a half a dose. Even the double strength is a one-time use. Once you take out the pack, it's ready to go. You don't have to take a top off or anything, primer or anything. Okay, go next. Call 911. CPR may be necessary. If you're not certified, you want to be instructed by the 911 operator.
And we'll be doing what soon?
You want to place individual in a recovery position where we talked about that? Okay. You want to stay with the individual observed. You inform paramedics, you can keep going. Again, we are talking about how naloxone stay in your system 30 to 90 minutes. We talked about the different symptoms, withdrawal symptoms. You go. Go again. So after an overdose, what you want to know, protection for liability, you guys will be covered under the Tennessee Good Samaritan Act if you administer naloxone. Just know as of July the 1st, there is across the board, anyone who administers naloxone is covered under the Good Samaritan Act. A lot of people was concerned about, administering medication and, it's a medication and the liabilities and everything. And so it used to be you had to be certified through this training through the state and get a certificate, and then you're covered. But as of July the 1st, everyone's covered, whoever is the naloxone, even if they went through training or not. Also, there was a law that was put in place for those who are in chronic substance use disorder, because again, a lot of people died unnecessarily. People around them being scared of getting charges, trying to clean the area up before the EMS come, all that. And this person was laying there dying, so they will sacrifice that person's life. And a lot of people found out the hard way that it's just very unfortunate that the decision people have made based on somebody's life just to save themselves. So they implemented this law, the Tennessee Addiction Treatment Act. And what it is, it says that any person seeking medical attention for themselves or someone else after an overdose has immunity from prosecution for a drug violation on a person's first drug overdose. So that was to encourage people to get the necessary medical attention. Compassion, fatigue, and burnout. It's a real place. When somebody get tired and they turn to a whole laundry detergent, you need to get them some help. Tired, right? When they just tired, your people they tired, and I'm tired. When they turn into tired and the laundry detergent, you need to get that person out. Tell them, dude, you need to go take care of yourself. But this is not only for health professionals. This is just working with somebody who maybe deal with trauma. It can be a friend going through the same thing over and over again with his same girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever. It can just be compassion can come in all kinds of different ways. What I say is take care of yourself. You go to the next one. These are the mentally emotional symptoms of compassion, fatigue, and burnout. These are the physical symptoms right here. Okay, go to it. Huh?
We got some picture takers.
Okay, go to the next one. Okay. What you do is basically take care of yourself. Healthy boundaries. No one's a full sentence. I almost told him no earlier. I'm going out with my grandkids. No, I'm a personal commitment. I apologize for being late and behind, but I had forgot. But I've learned to take care of myself. But one thing about it, you can make yourself or attempt to make yourself as indispensable as possible when it comes to people's lives and in employment. But the reality is that you can be replaced. For real. In people's lives and in employment, it goes both ways. What you want to do is take care of yourself. Again, say no. Have healthy boundaries. Don't neglect your needs and your interests. Don't try to be Superman for somebody else and ain't nobody that'll show up for you. Yes, sir.
It's probably they probably have actually no statistics at all. Do you know if people back up to us, when I first heard compassion fatigue, I was automatically triggered.
Okay.
I think about like people talking about, people with like water signs that are overly, when I say water signs, like if you're a cancer, if you're, because they say they're like more sensitive. I knew that sounded like like compassion fatigue. I can think about the other cancers I know. I'm like, are we like predisposed? Like, are we
people certain time?
Yeah, because my earth sign friends, they're like just rigid, like they don't care. It's easy for them to like compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize, disassociate, separate, and all that.
I can't do that.
But you're a little bit more, because you may practice a little bit more empathy. You again, compassion fatigue is real, trauma is real, vicarious or secondary trauma is real. That means when you're working, you just maybe people that you're working with have more things going on than other people. And I think it's just our own makeup as well. I think it's not only, I think there's several different factors to go with when people can take on. Like me, I can absorb a crazy amount of trauma, not only myself, but also hearing other people's. I've been gifted to share space with people, for people. But the reality is not everybody's able to hear the stories of the children explaining what has happened to them when they end up from one end of the country to the other end on trafficking. But me, I can do it and listen and be able to give a sound, suggestion or give help when some people I can listen to a little girl going through that or a little boy. You get what I'm saying? So I just think we're just different. We just we sometimes connect differently.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I do that, I feel like I have to turn off my emotions, and I don't like doing that. Like, isn't that like the turning off your emotions? I'll protect myself, but it's like I'm not showing up fully. You know what I'm talking about. I know you know.
But it's also a certain thing as a health. I think it's a healthy way to disassociate as well. And I find myself doing that. Meaning that when I'm present with someone that is explaining the trauma they have experienced and it becomes too great, I do take myself to a place, but I do allow I allow some of me to be present in order to get the facts to see how to help that person. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
That makes sense? Yeah, but I have told myself to do that.
Mhm.
Because I used to carry it and I used to have anxiety because the stories again, I hear you like, and on a day-to-day basis. But you know, I do get that people sometimes take on a little bit more. I didn't believe I was gifted. I think I was gifted through my trauma. I think because everything I experienced as a young child myself and the trauma I experienced, it kind of allowed me and prepared me to be able to brace and hold that for other people. Okay, we're wrapping up, you guys. So here's the naloxone assessment, you guys. We're finished. We got a small little test.
Dun, dun,
We
dun.
got a small little test. Y'all got a brief survey, and then we done. Anybody got any questions? Pass it around. Take one of the pass around. So we got this small assessment, and it's gonna be real quick because we're gonna do it together. It ain't real hard.
Love it, love it.
And we can get in there. The survey, you don't have to put any identifying information on it. You just have to put today's date on there and just answer those questions. Yes, sir. And please leave a comment. Don't tell me I was late. Y'all can put that. And she needs to be on time next time. I hope I made up for that.
No, you
I
did.
hope y'all.
As long as you made a part, you make it.
Any organization, I train track groups, sororities, family members, friends, I train anyone.
You have cards?
Yes, I have cards. Actually, I have this neat thing where I have my business card on the back of the certificate. So you can keep up with both of them.
Look at God.
So yeah, so right here on the back of your cards, you'll have certificate of completion. And you can put your name under here and date it. But on the other side, it has my best contact information. So my work cell and my email is the best place. I ain't never at my desk, Jesus. But my work cell, So how many people, is anybody that's on there?
So today we have 6 in person and I believe 2
Okay.
online.
So if they need a certificate, I
Yeah.
just need emails, so I can email them a paper copy.
Y'all hear that? We need your email so we can give you a certificate.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
You ever used naloxone on somebody?
Have I ever used, I have not had the opportunity. I used it on myself one time accidentally. But then one day, that way I told me to build bones. But I was like, okay, but I have not had an opportunity to use it on the individual ever. Now I've seen it used on somebody.
Okay.
Whereas I was working as a residential manager for a program, and by the time I got to the house where the people were, police had just went in before me, and I was going in and I saw them administering naloxone, and she popped right up on the tiptoes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we're gonna go through this naloxone assessment right quick. Because also it's information on here how to access naloxone.
All right, beautiful. And we have people throwing their email in the YouTube chat, so we'll make sure to get those emails and we will reach
You're
out.
going to send them. Yeah.
I will send it to you, no worries.
So this is the naloxone training assessment. And so it says what forms of naloxone are available. And remember I talked about the intranasal and the intramuscular.
Yeah.
Just know that we have the intranasal kind, but the intramuscular kind is very real. You can't have access to that through your pharmacy. That's where you'll pull it up with a needle and you have to administer it in and out of that.
Does it work slower?
From my understanding, intramuscular, from my understanding, works maybe a little bit faster than the intranasal.
Yeah, it works faster. And some people, like people who use, they have reported that it's actually, it causes less withdrawal symptoms than some of the, what is it called, intranasal ones, especially the Cloxata, because Cloxata, since it's a higher dose, like it really strips the opioid from those receptors.
Yeah.
So people who use, they report as like withdrawal symptoms, like what do they call it? Persistent opioid withdrawal. So they prefer that the IM be used on them, just because like the IM works more quickly and there's less likelihood that you have to, spray more than once. So you're not getting a higher dose and causing, the persistent withdrawals. Because that withdrawal will get them back into another cycle of death, because now they're trying to get away from this withdrawal. So now they start using, and now 90 minutes later, this, the nasal stops working. Now they're back down, right? So.
I don't know, okay. He done did some studies, okay. Now, more than one dose of naloxone may be necessary for EMS arrival.
Yes.
Remember, it's no magic number. Don't do your two and be like, but it ain't your day. Don't do that, man, like that. You want to keep hitting them as long as you can in 2 to 3 minute intervals until EMS comes to take over. Okay. You should give them naloxone and let the patient alone. False, you don't want to do that. When administered intramuscular naloxone, where's the best location to give the injection? The outer thigh. If you cannot reach the outer thigh for whatever reason, they say the outer arm, you want to go there. But outer thigh is a suggested place. Okay.
Is that because of the muscle?
Because you want to try to miss bone. You want to try your best possible to miss bone. Well, if the needle can go through the jeans, that's why they said if you can't get to it, maybe the outer thigh. I mean the outer arm. So how long, but yeah, it depends on your needle you have and all that. It's a couple of factors with that right there, but you want to try to make sure. How long does naloxone last? 30 to 90 minutes, yes, but just know that opioids can stay in your system where they can attach and be dangerous to that receptor for hours. So just cause that 30 to 90 minutes, when it wears off, if it has residual opioids in your system, they can attach and cause that opioid overdose. Naloxone is an addictive substance. False, it's not. How do you determine someone is overdosing? I'm saying how many good test takers we have. All the above. So I had been trying to like, okay, you're gonna keep reading that or not. It's all the above. Okay. Call 911 as soon as you suspect an overdose. True, so true. CPR, chest compression may be necessary. True. And the last one is what law protects you from civil liability when administering naloxone to someone you suspect is overdosing? Be the Good Samaritan. That's so true. Yes. So here's basically the last slide. In Tennessee, anyone obtaining naloxone directly from a pharmacist without a physician's prescription can get it. Meaning, it used to be, sometimes some doctors do give prescriptions for like those MAT clinics, some people, but just know you as an individual can go into CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and not have a written prescription from a doctor and tell them connect the pharmacist to get naloxone. Naloxone, there's a blanket prescription for naloxone in Tennessee. Also, you can use insurance. It may be a cost range from $0 to $150, depending on your insurance. You can have little to no copay for most or with TennCare. You can use FSA, HSA, HRA accounts. Also, if you qualify, you can use good RAs and cover RAs to get great discounts off the medication. Also, you can get it from all these pharmacies. Also, you can get it from local to community pharmacies. But I want you to hear this. The Tennessee Save a Life program, which is who provide this training, prioritize naloxone distribution for those who are at risk, family members as well, and those who do not have other means of assessing naloxone. So in saying that, any more questions, comments, or concerns? All righty. So I have your certificate. Remember, my card is on the front. Your certificate is on the back. You just write your name on the certificate of completion. And I recommend every so often get trained. You already got your certificate, right?
No.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here. And here, right here, you got yours, right?
All right, yeah, the camera is off, but thank you so much, Andrea. This was a great presentation and we really appreciate everything that you do for us. And for those of you watching at home, thank you for joining us and hope you have a great day.
I tried to go to the red.